ready for it?
Yeah.
You ready for it?
Yeah.
Come on, let's do it.
Right.
Podcast. Ah! God's sake. Oh, I've broken the dog up. Oh, shit. When was the last time you tuned? Hello and welcome to the Showfile Podcast, a podcast for performance nerds. My name's Tom, founder of a work in progress, a live electronic music direction company. And today we are doing the guitar episode.
Yeah.
Welcome, Oscar, to
Thank
do
you.
the guitar episode. I probably should introduce you before telling everyone what episode, which is a fucking episode first. Oscar is one of our music directors and an artist in his own right. And his instrument is guitar.
Yeah.
You spent years studying guitar, didn't you?
Yeah.
So hopefully you can play good guitar for us today.
Well, I don't know about
And
that.
give us good information, reliable information.
I also don't know about that.
Okay. Well, we'll do our best.
We'll try.
Oscar. What
Yeah.
is Oscar? Who is Oscar? Tell us about Oscar.
Well, yeah. Been working as a music director on electronic stuff.
Yeah.
Really. And being out of guitar world, to be honest. Which is nice. Getting a chance to get back to it and dive in as deeply as we think about production in other aspects.
Yeah.
But yeah, make weird dance music, and that's kind of the world that I live in.
Weird dance music. I wouldn't say it's that weird.
No.
Or is it supposed to be weird and that's actually an insult me saying, it's not that weird?
It's me taming down how weird it is, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's fair enough. That makes sense. To be fair, though, like with all of your guitar experience and injecting that into the way that we've like built shows in the past, definitely created a huge number of sort of standards and methodologies and ways of working, not only from like your like knowledge of effects, but also like technologies and like theories building pedal boards. It's like super common when we do an electronic show where we're going to put lots of synths and MIDI controllers onto a single place, which you can just open or pull out of a Peli and go on stage, and it just works because when you're out on tour, the last thing you want to be doing is having to manage plugging in a million cables. You kind of want everything half plugged in already before you start. And pedal boards inherently are that.
The power of pedal
as a
boards
theory, like
is great. It's kind of wild how useful that can be, just centralizing everything. And probably worth giving a shout out to Temple Audio for making pedal boards that we've put on like every gig.
Yeah. I mean,
they're amazing.
They are really, really cool. You can put patch panels in the side of them, which is great, which you can also then customize what's in and out. So we've done a lot of building, RTP MIDI in and out on it, lots of network in and out on it, as well as XLR in and out on it to like add vocal effects, or, for shows where it's a bit smaller, but we do have auto tune, like we've mounted, the UAD interface to them. You can basically build a playback rig on one, and it's, as good as a rack, depending on how you do your show. Fucking hell, you can put PowerCon in on the side as well, can't you? And then PowerCon out on the other side. Yeah, it's pretty good. The only problem is the sizing. At the moment, I'm really struggling because we're building a few things at the moment, and that I can't quite get the right Temple Audio board to fit in the specific size of Pelican case with all of that lovely I/O on the side, but then also I can get just the right number of things on it. They're always like ever so slightly too big or ever so slightly too small. Yeah. Because they're guitar centric. Nobody thinks about everybody who needs to put synthesizers on stuff, guys. For God's sake. It's so unfair.
And put stuff in Pelis.
Build your pedal board sizes to Pelis. I think that's definitely that should be the rule. If you make pedal boards for a living, it should be look at the Peli sizes, make them those sizes. Don't worry about anything else. I don't care about your custom flight cases. I want to put it in a Peli with loads of other shit. I'll make it lightweight too. I don't have any demands. But if it could be lightweight, very modular, I want to be able to put patch panels on the side. That would be the perfect pedal board for synthesizers and effects and MIDI controllers.
Yeah, true.
Maybe this is one of those you need to fucking build it kind of situations.
Potentially, yeah.
So yeah, you are a guitarist and you studied guitar at university.
I did. Yeah, surprisingly. And yeah, kind of nice getting back to Guitar World. It's something we don't actually get to do that much with shows.
We don't a lot. There's normally quite minimal. There'll be like a few little bits throughout a show where someone will like pick up and like play a few lead lines and then put it back down again. But it's very rare to find guitarists who have like produced and then needing to perform like a full gig with guitar on every single track, because in electronic music you're going to use a big range palette of sounds, so it's not always going to be
or to be fair,
driven.
what I hope this will be useful for is like people or producers wanting a guitarist in their show and realizing how much work guitar can do within a mix, doing other jobs.
I'd say in the past, like, it's more commonly drum and bass shows where we've had a guitarist on stage and then had to do a lot of extra sound design with that guitarist, where there's like obvious kind of traditional guitar sounds that just work in that kind of mix and in that kind of environment. But then when you're getting to like more liquid stuff and more like jungly stuff, it's not quite as obvious, and you're having to do much more creative things to get like the right tones that are going to sit right, both so they're genre appropriate and so they sit nicely in the mix. Because that's another thing with sound design that people always forget about, is like this has to sit in a mix as well. Like when it sounds good on its own, of course it sounds good on its own. It's a sound that you've made to sound on its own. It's like you should be thinking about how it's going to sit in a mix from the moment you start designing it. And then it will always, like, that's always how you're going to get much nicer source, so that when it does get to the PA in the room, you kind of want it to just sit immediately, and then any EQ and other bullshit that you do is just like a fine tune to just really like cherry on top of the cake rather than the full fucking cake.
Which is actually probably quite a good segue into talking about the three things that we've got set in front of us.
Oh yeah.
And like whether and its job of sitting in a mix and how you want it to do that.
Sure, yeah. I mean, there's two kind of main worlds of it, right?
Yeah.
So we've got like analog world and we've
Old
got
school.
digital world. And they kind of have each of them has pros and cons, obviously. So I guess let's start with the analog stuff. That's probably more like if you've ever played guitar as a kid, because I played guitar when I was a teenager, and I had a shit distortion pedal and a very shit amp. I think that's lots of people's entry points, right? But then that scales through to becoming a much more accomplished player and musician.
I think so. And is a rabbit hole in itself that you can dive down.
Yeah, there's loads of cool shit. So when we're talking about analog and amps and pedals and all that kind of thing, there's kind of, I guess, I don't know. I don't know. I haven't done proper pedals, like guitar sound design, in a long time. So this was kind of more talking to you about it properly. There's a couple of like not hard and fast rules, but like good ways to start in terms of like your effects chains, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you start with like a guitar that you like into an amp that you like, and go from there. And then your kind of basic engineering way of thinking about it is start with your gain-based effects, move into your modulation, like choruses and phases, flanges, and then into your time-based, so reverbs and delays.
Great.
But if you're playing shoegaze,
then you just put distortion after everything.
Oh yeah, reverb pedal, then your fuzz pedal. Good to
I
go.
want sustain forever.
Yeah.
I want to play one note and that be the entire show.
Yeah.
I guess it's like there's a few different ways that you need to look at guitar pedals, and that is like your creative and your engineer kind of brains working together to get it, just to sit just right, and to make sure that you're not like overloading the input of a pedal before you've even started trying to sculpt anything. If you send something too hard into a reverb, it'll just be clipping on the input and might sound good, might also sound really shit. and completely ruin everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Or do you want to fuzz out that tail of a reverb that's going for 10 seconds?
Absolutely.
That's, another thing that you need to think about.
Yeah. So it all totally depends on your sound design goals and what you're trying to achieve with it. I guess one of the things that's like really good about the analog approach to guitars, but also fairly problematic, is the inconsistency.
Yeah.
Because you're miking up a cab in a room, which in this studio will sound quite nice because it's quite well treated and there's not really anything else going on apart from us recording this and my dog Tina in the corner having a little nap. So it's likely all we're going to get down that mic is microphone, maybe a little bit of us.
Yeah.
But when you get to a gig and you've got a drum kit and you've got a PA and you've got a crowd, crowd bleed is one of the things that you'll never learn how that really sounds, how much it ruins your source until you're in a gig with a big crowd going fucking crazy for a show, which for vibes is great, right?
Yeah.
Like big noisy crowds, fantastic, fucking A, let's go. But for trying to record something with like a microphone, and particularly like nice microphones, like you'll find in Live World, it's way more dynamic than condenser microphones, because condenser microphones are very sensitive, very detailed.
Yeah.
Whereas when you get to Live World, there's so much ambient detail that those mics can get overwhelmed. Apart from drum overheads, but then drum overheads, I guess that's a whole different theory. That's not what we're talking about here. But the position of that amp in the room is going to be different every night.
Yeah.
As much as you try to keep it consistent.
Yeah.
It's likely going to be different every night. The room's going to be different. Like I said, everything is going to be different. So that will change that sound.
Especially if you're running a valve amp.
Yeah.
And any sort of analog gear, it's going to change.
Yeah.
Some of these pedals literally sound different depending on how hot it is.
Which can be like really good. That can, if that's your vibe, if that's the point of the show, or the point of not the point of the show, but the point of the part in the show, then yes, more of that, please.
Yep.
How do we make that really unstable? But also with that comes very unstable sound, which will be very hard. Like getting that to sit against very well studio produced backing tracks that are probably mixed by someone who really knows what they're doing. Having a slightly ropey microphone on a slightly ropey amp that never really does the same thing, you're not really setting your sound engineers up to succeed. You're setting them up really to fail, because you're getting them to constantly guess, well, not even guess, like constantly trying to firefight all these different situations, which when they've got something that is always consistent, that inconsistency is just like one more job. So if you've got that plus like a lead vocal mic, plus a fully mic'd drum kit, that's a lot to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's just hard. Just to say it out loud is hard. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So, but if your setup has no track, this may be a better way of doing it, because there may be a bit of vibe to lean into with that mix every night. So you're likely going to get more. You'll get more consistent results, even though there's inconsistency. Do you know what I mean? Because there's just inherently inconsistency in the room. Yeah. And with the instruments you're using. Sorry.
Yeah, and it'll become more experimentation led.
Yeah.
Which can be lovely.
Yeah.
And really exciting, and one of the spaces where a old school kind of setup really leans into, because there's so many interesting pedal companies and things you can do that you're really not supposed to.
Yeah, well, mate, 100%. Like the guitar pedal, it's an industry. You could call it an industry. Yeah. So many people making weird little boutique niche little things, which are really, really great. But there may be like a sweet spot on it. You're going to want to have that sweet spot every night, but to get that sweet spot every night, you're going to have to sit there with it and just let's just slightly tweak that. Let's just slightly tweak that until it's right. It's like, well, it's a potentiometer, man. Like, you're probably not going to find that spot that you found in the studio ever again. Like, it's a good thing you recorded it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
The squeak machine over here is exactly that.
Perfect.
Yeah. Literally, it's...
Go on, what's it sound like?
Yeah. So you can turn it on and it kind of does its own thing without even sending signal into it. But there's this one squeak
Oh,
It's a good squeak.
it's a really, really good squeak.
But depending on how hot it was in the room, you've got to find that squeak in a different place every
Yeah,
night,
right.
which proved quite difficult when there were no lights and you're nervous and stressed.
Well, it's a black knob on a grey pedal.
Yep.
You don't know where that is.
Yeah.
And, you know, the lampy's pointed a Sharpie at it, which heats it up for a little bit, so the sweet spot is there, and then points that away, it cools down. All right, we've got to go over here now.
Yeah.
Dancing
Literally.
around with like literally the stage lighting.
Yeah.
Changing what's going on. Absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
I mean, fucking hell, putting that underneath like an archway in one of those venues in London. Well, that could be cool. That could be some fun noise.
Yeah. I mean, it's great if you're down to do that and you've got time during the gig and that's fun, then go for it. But yeah, it's not the kind of, you're not going to turn it on and get the same sound ever.
Yeah, so, you know, that's what you want, then that's brilliant.
Yeah.
So I guess the other thing about this whole signal flow is your amp is inherently mono, like, because we've got a Strymon Big Sky on this pedal board, Strymon Timeline on this pedal board, and those are kind of notoriously very versatile pedals. We've used them on synths on loads of shows because they've got a stereo input and they've also got a stereo output.
Yep.
But then those outputs are only as good as, you know, whatever listening medium they're going to, and if that's a guitar amp, that's going to be mono. You're not going to be able to create any like stereo field kind of modulation or anything like that.
Yeah, which is it is a real limitation for if you're using this kind of setup. And I think something to think about if you're using guitar a lot in your show and you need that space and you need it to fill that space in the mix, then it's something that might stop you, or you go down the stereo route, which is a lot to think about. You need to think about the phase of it going into the amps and then the phase of the mics as well. Which is
and then get that right in every single room.
Yep. Yeah. And carry double the weight and
of course. Or rent double the shit amps, and then your hire company turns up one day and you're like, I asked for these Vox amps and they turned up with a Fender Twin.
Yep.
You're like, well, great. So
that both sound completely different.
Just completely wrong. Because that happens all the time, man. Like, hire companies are the worst for just subbing stuff at festivals and not telling you until you get there, and they're like, this will be fine, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, no.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. You confirmed you had the right thing on email. What's going on?
Literally 3 months ago.
And yesterday. Why did you lie to me yesterday? You knew you'd see me today. Touring is a nightmare, man. Absolute nightmare. It like the only consistent thing in touring and live music is the inconsistency.
Yeah.
And but it's true though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is true. And there's decisions that you need to make based on like how much you are fighting that inconsistency, because your analog setups are going to give you more consistency. The same with synthesizers, it's the same with drums, it's the same with your guitars, it's the same with your vocals. I mean, vocals are one of those things where we often approach trying to make sure that if we're going to have that line live, we spend all of our time making the rest of the show really simple, so the engineer can purely focus on the vocal to get it to match up to like loud studio produced style backing tracks. So, you know, if you're adding inconsistency to the source material of your show, like, just be aware of if it doesn't sound good, it's probably because there's a lot to deal with, and a lot of stuff is changing all the time.
Yeah. No, definitely. Something to keep in mind, I guess, when you're putting together your gig is the amount of care that you need to put into what you're doing in the moment.
Yeah.
To get that to sound as good as possible.
Yeah.
An engineer is going to have to put the same amount of care into just that one thing whilst they're looking after a whole gig. Yeah. Which is, a lot.
Probably going to be a nightmare.
Yep.
Sounds like a nightmare just talking about it. So the alternative, there's some really good alternatives now. And it's, I mean, I've only noticed them in the past 5 years, but maybe that's just from the types of people we've been working with or whatever. But digital systems are so widely available and surprisingly cheap. You can get a lot for not a lot of money.
Yeah.
well, in the scale of good technology that gives you a good sound, with kind of, and it's all based on using impulse responses in these pedals like the Quad Cortex and the HX Stomp. It uses the same kind of technology, which is kind of like impulse responses in reverbs, in convolution reverb, right? So it's like an audio file that's kind of like a sonic profile of the amp cab or the effects pedal or the amp head or whatever, and then you can run your guitar through that, and that then, I mean, it sounds pretty much the same.
Literally.
This is probably quite a good time actually, because we made some sounds.
Yeah.
Well, you've made some sounds, and maybe it's a good time to just be like, right, so this is what Oscar's amp sounds like with your pedal board and a 57. What's that? Just like side on.
Yeah, just
middle of the cone.
Hung over the cab.
Hung over it.
Classic.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Spacey, roomy, bit of delay, bit of drive.
Nice little guitar sound.
And then, I mean, this was, 15 minutes of pissing about on this Quad Cortex, and
so like I spent a bunch of time today doing the sound design before we started recording, and so I've listened to this over and over again, and like we've A/B'd these as well to like try and like tweak these sounds and get them really close. Every time you fucking switch it, I still can't believe it.
Yeah.
It's still nuts, like just how close it is and how it literally just feels like the same thing in a different fucking room.
Yeah. Yeah. And how roomy and kind of real that actually sounds.
Yeah. Because that's just Quad Cortex on its own and all the technology inside that Quad Cortex.
Yeah.
And then back to your amp. It's insane. And technology is ridiculous. I can see why so many people are just like taking that tiny little box. And then we've got an alternative, which is the HX Stomp, which we actually have these out on lots of gigs.
Yeah.
It's the only reason I bought one actually, is because we have so many artists using them for guitar stuff and also for synthesizers. They're really great for synthesizers.
They're amazing.
Because it's stereo in, stereo out again. What does your guitar sound like through that? Slightly different, maybe a little bit clippier here and there, but like it's the same world, right?
Yeah, still a nice, spacey, slightly driven.
Yeah, great.
I think to the point that it would do a very similar job in a mix.
Oh yeah, definitely. So that's Quad Cortex again.
Yeah. And then back to the HX Stomp.
Yeah, I mean it's still great. Yeah. It's kind of nuts.
No, I think it is crazy. It's crazy how close you can get in quite a short amount of time. And just having something that you can get to the same sound really quickly, and then you're just going to plug it in, get it on stage, plug it in, and it's going to sound like that.
Because that's it.
Yeah.
That's the sound now.
Yeah.
It doesn't change with the room or anything like that. Like, if you want your consistency,
definitely,
there you go.
Yeah.
If you want to put a bit of EQ or dynamics processing after your amp in the box there, just to like a little bit of pressure off if you're front of house engineer, you can just do it. You just throw a couple of filters on there.
Yeah. Which we literally have. I mean, we've got the Quad Cortex sound here.
Yeah.
And then the same sound with.
Right. Yeah, sick.
Just a little high pass. And just that kind of to 12K cut off just to get rid of some of that.
Yeah, great. So that's like studio produced guitar ready to go, basically.
Yeah.
So whoever's mixing that show can kind of think more about, okay, what my other sources on stage and how can I fit that in there?
Yeah.
I don't need to worry about like boring EQ, free up a couple more bands on their parametrics, so maybe they can notch out a little bit more. Because you've only really got so much processing on live desks.
Yeah.
You can't just put infinite numbers of fucking Soothe and Pro Q3 because you needed 100 notches of fucking comb filter or whatever it is you've decided you wanted to do. You can't do that. So the more you can arm people. I mean, this is basically the common theme of this is creating really good source for whoever has to get it into those speakers and get it all to sit nice and be the best recreation of your record. So that's like the big advantage of your digital processing is the consistency.
Yeah.
Like that impulse response is the impulse response.
Yeah, and the consistency rather of guitar sound, like the consistency to your produced guitar stem, which is
totally
kind of wild.
Yeah,
like especially for people that can't necessarily tour with an in-house engineer or don't have enough time for production rehearsals or whatever.
100%.
That gets you pretty close.
You won't need to do much more than a quad cortex.
Yeah,
we really do sound like we're endorsing it, but or being paid to fucking
I know, literally
shill them, but we're really not. It's just, this is the kinds of digital technology that make your modern guitar processing very simple. There's also Kempers out there. You could use Kempers as an alternative.
Yeah.
They're another type of they're probably the first digital amp modeling system that I ever was introduced to anyway. And Quad Cortex and HX Stomper maybe a little bit newer, but this whole impulse response system for cabs and effects that's how you get those sounds to sound so good. One of the things I actually love about the HX Stomp in particular, when we're doing synths and stuff through it, is like the flexibility in that sound design, because it's not just the amps and the cabs that it does, it's also all of your distortion, your modulation, like weird pitch effects are super fun. That's a really good one for doing interesting ideas for live shows. Actually, we've been recording Performance Techniques recently, which is like one of our content series that we do on Instagram and TikTok and stuff like that. And we've been using a lot of pitch effects in creating new parts with instruments that you may not create those parts with. And it's a really good way of like adding kind of almost whammy kind of style things to like synths and, doing those kinds of extra pitchy things are great. And then you can modulate them with MIDI, which is even better.
Yeah.
Like you can send program change to that pedal and then it's all of it changes.
I think MIDI firstly stopping the need for any tap dancing.
Oh my god, yeah.
And that like I need to kneel down now and turn this pedal on and change this knob like between
Analog
the right
change.
amount, which can get quite hardcore.
Yeah.
And being able to do that and like assign an expression pedal within these parameters per patch is a bit of a game changer.
Yeah, 100%. Like that's how you can turn these like little bits of sound design song per song into a proper performance where you've also got these kind of controllers in your show where you can always go back and you always get the same expression, the same return of like sound modulation in it. So whether that's like a fader or an expression pedal or something like that, like it's a much smarter way of going about it to be like, okay, cool, like this is always my filters, this is always my pitch, this is always like my delay send or whatever. So you just always know in that moment, like, oh, I need to do delay send here. All right, well, I do my expression pedal or I do my fader or whatever it is. You can literally just like start macroing those things into consistent ways of controlling the show and controlling your sound design live, which I mean, obviously the sound design live is like a big part of electronic music, so I guess that's why those really, really appeal to us is all of that flexibility in one tiny little box is absolutely amazing. From a touring and a sound design sort of standpoint. And the thing, like, just because you choose one of those worlds doesn't mean you have to stick with them. They're not like a binary. You don't go like, I'm a digital guitarist or I'm an analog guitarist. That's bollocks. It's they all have send return loops on them, these digital pedals. So you can kind of start to use them. Like today on the podcast, actually, the Quad Cortex is like the hub. It's like the routing hub of your guitar. We've got your guitar going in, and then we've got a send to the HX Stomp. We've also got a send to your guitar amp. We've also got the HX Stomp main outs, which go to our recording, so that you can hear all of them. And then you've set up some patches on there where you can literally just, scenes. They're called scenes on the Quad Cortex, aren't they?
Scenes that I can flick through so you can see each one's routed.
Yeah.
and I can mute and unmute.
And it just becomes a little routing matrix for you.
Yeah.
Which I guess in like adding that to an analog setup could be routing you through different pedals or different chains of pedals, like either to the amp or using the quad cortex out if you're an absolute psychopath who wants to make everyone's life super difficult. but yeah, like, you know, they're also designed to integrate into all these kinds of things.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely exciting synth applications of being able to have more than one synth routing into one place.
Yeah.
And doing a bunch of different things to it.
Absolutely. As a sort of processing hub.
Yeah,
for
exactly.
stuff. I think it's wicked. And it's what the HX Stomp's been so useful for on shows.
Yeah.
Processing stuff that aren't guitars.
Yeah. Oh man, I love it so much. They are the best for that kind of stuff. I guess those are a lot of the things kind of concerning those main types, is like the sound design that you know, those are your options. These are like your main ways of getting towards the things that you're trying to make. None of it's right, none of it's wrong.
Absolutely.
It just is. So we should probably start looking at putting them with an actual tune. If I get Ableton open, I think your laptop has gone to sleep. Give me your fingerprint. I should have just taken a copy so I could open your laptop during the recording. So we have the song that we've been using for all the podcasts in an Ableton session, which sounds like this.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I know it.
Oh, he knows it. I definitely got Oscar to record guitars for this. Definitely sent him a message out of the blue and just said, hey man, I'm like making some tunes for like, you know, education and for, you know, interviews when we're recruiting people and things like that. Like, could you just throw some guitars down for me? Good thing as well. It's all come full circle. Now you're actually going to play it.
I know. Now I need to remember what I played.
So I've got a little guitar bus in the Ableton session here that we can solo. And we can start going through some of these actual guitar parts. And there's like basically some little chords in this first verse. Simple. Is it flooding back to you yet?
Slowly.
Slowly but surely. There's some like fun little picky delay bits. That's cool. And then I think there's like a really cool riff that you did, which I've been an absolute producer dick about and like chopped it up in a way that you definitely wouldn't have played it. In the chorus. Hear that in context. And then back to just soloing it. Oh, and it does this bit at the end that is. Da 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 da. That's my favourite. That's that pitch. Sang the pitch. Yeah, so there's like a little kind of harmony bit, and then it also follows the. Yeah, I definitely edited that together, didn't I? Sorry. This is like actually a really common thing to find on shows where you've got, you know, someone's gone in with a producer or something and they've been like, oh, let's record a bunch of stuff, and then producer has gone and done producer things as producer does, and just been like, oh, I'll just chop it up until it sounds interesting, because I'm not looking to make a part, I'm looking to make interesting sound. There's like this conflict between like player and producer, where producer's like, but it sounds nice, and player's like, no, but never play it like this. And that's exactly what's happened here. Yeah. With me producing your parts. It happens so much with drums. That's always like a classic one when you sit down with drummers in a room. They're just like, yeah, this isn't really the way a drummer would ever play anything. And you're like, well, yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's the part.
Yeah, different swing amounts.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. can you play a 64 Ableton swing, please? On eights.
Yeah. Literally, drummer's tough job for electronic music.
Oh, man. Tell me about it. Anyway, so you've got like Shredosaurus Rex in the chorus, and you've got some nice guitars in the verse.
I can't believe you said that.
What did I say? That's funny.
Shredosaurus
Rex. That's what it fucking is, though, isn't it? Listen to it.
That's great.
Shredosaurus Rex. Watch out! Here comes the meteor. Okay, so we're getting a bit too silly, aren't we? So if we approach this as if we're music directing this track,
yeah,
which I guess we kind of are as part of the podcast, there's what we're going to pick out, really.
I mean, those chords and that riff are the two kind of
those are your main bits.
Things. Yeah, I think those delay plucks sit in with the synths so nicely. I'd say stick them in with that chord bus.
Yeah.
That's kind of where they're sitting in the space that they're in.
Yeah.
But yeah, those chords, pretty simple on the verse, nice to play. And then chorus, provided the guitarist isn't singing.
Provided the guitarist isn't singing. Well, yeah, I suppose so. What do you mean you can't play that and sing? Okay, so in preparing this, we've kind of, I guess, we never really thought about it before, have we? Because it's so rare that we have a lot of guitar on a show for what we do. We haven't had to really categorize anything, but we've kind of come up with 3 main approaches to guitar on shows.
Yeah.
Which I guess, this is actually kind of universal though, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
So we called it part-time, full-time, overtime.
Yep.
Like all the shit jobs you had trying to make it music. Which one was a work in progress? Right answers only. No, we won't do that. So let's have a look. So I've made some notes for them. I say we've made some notes for them. So part-time would be more of like there's like key moments throughout the show in different tracks.
Yeah, it's kind of where we sit for the most part
100%.
when guitars are involved in tunes.
Because someone would not only be playing guitar, they'd also need to be playing some chords or maybe a lead line or maybe some like, fucking Fred again pads or whatever it is. Or maybe even just like tweaking a filter on like an acid part or doing a drum machine or whatever it is. There's like loads of different things that they might be doing as well as playing that guitar part, and it's probably going to be more likely like a lead part, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be like a solo or
a
big iconic moment.
Yeah, a solo or a melody that will happen once or twice throughout the show.
Yeah.
And you pick up your guitar and it's loud and sounds big. And does what you need it to do. Really.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And that's it's not a bad approach because people fucking love it when you pick up a guitar and play it.
Yeah.
People love that
it can be like a really powerful moment and a good instrument to have like a lead moment with. Yeah,
100%. And especially when we're using we mostly would be using digital processing for that. It is, you can do it and it will sound good.
Yeah.
And it will be consistent. It'll be one of the few things that, will be turning up and sounding the same every night.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a nice thing. It's definitely like, it's when it becomes, I think, one of the last things to add to shows.
Yeah.
Or like an extra edition. And it's something to consider, I think, when we're building gigs with less players or like earlier gigs, whether it actually needs to be a guitar. It's such a world like we've just talked about that you need to figure out and get into, and an extra line and instrument.
Yeah, and if literally from a practical perspective, because a guitar that's a whole piece of luggage that you now need to take, a whole box on its own that you need to take around, and then obviously the processing for it, or the pedal board for it. Like, that's basically two things that you add to your show. How worth those? Like, how worth is it, that part? Like, could it just kind of live on track?
Yeah. Or could you play it with a synth? Or
could you play it with a synth? Could you, do it in a whole bunch of other different ways that would have equally as much impact?
Yeah.
So in terms of that, listening to this, let's pick out like a part-time guitar track or part-time guitar part for this tune. I mean, it's probably like the chorus, right?
Yeah. I think that's the moment in the tune that's like the guitar adds something emotionally to it.
Yeah,
and like,
totally.
Will actually get your point across on stage when you're playing your track as the artist. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, I'd agree. Which would then be basically this.
Yep.
Shredosaurus Rex. Oscar always chooses Shredosaurus Rex. And arguably, in the scope of kind of the structure of this, you could extend this chorus part and turn it into a solo afterwards.
Yeah.
And you could do your guitar solo part and be do your rock star bit. And it wouldn't feel out of place because you've just done a whole bunch of stuff with a sound which is probably going to be a decent lead sound as well.
Yeah.
When you get to it, once we pull a bunch of other stuff out, as well as the vocal and whatever. Okay, so that would be a part-time thing. So then full-time, we're looking at more of a, there's a whole gig's worth of guitars now.
Yeah.
In full-time guitars.
Yeah.
Which means there's probably more like guitar-driven writing, and we're gonna need to focus more on how do you play guitar for the whole show? How do you play guitar for the whole track? What are all the parts that are there that you need to be doing? So approaching this as like a full-time thing, it's kind of, I guess, kind of like when you're doing vocals or of like backing track vocals versus, your lead vocal, where traditionally you're probably going to mute all the lead vocal.
Yep.
And there'll be a vocalist that sings that. And then there'll be some stuff on track still. So full-time guitar will probably fall more into that, except a guitar-driven way of like, which, with this track here, I guess, you'd probably play these chords to start off with. That's the most important guitar part, right? And then we've got this extra little kind of atmospheric-y, delay type thing, which, if we're real about it, you cannot play that while you play this.
Yep.
Unless you've got the double head guitar.
Oh, sick.
Israel Helsker's just like, damn, why didn't I bring the double head guitar so I could prove that you should play both of them at the same time? Do some parallel processing in the quad cortex. God.
That would be wild.
That would be sick.
Yeah.
We'd also probably approach this chorus guitar part in the same way. That's all shreddy, because we've got this little harmony part, which goes with, again, like playing that with the harmony is probably going to be quite difficult.
Yeah.
Probably impossible.
Probably.
Unless
I'm not good enough to do it.
Oh. You sure? You're quite a good guitarist. No pressure or anything. And there'd need to be some sort of like program change in there as well.
Yeah.
I guess with full-time guitar, there's going to be patch changes.
Yeah, you start to navigate that world, and it's like a job to do. Exactly.
So either with, have you got some of these patches here?
Yeah. So I've got a kind of cleaner.
Great, right.
And then I can switch patch into that overdrive.
you just give us a quick demo of that?
Yeah.
So if I give you, let me find like something not unreasonable. So why don't we just do the last 8 bars into that chorus? I'll give you 2 bars and in. Oh, maybe I'll give you with the track.
Nice.
And then what I'll do is I'll mute these 2 parts that you're going to play, so you can kind of hear the backing tracks against that guitar. So 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, great. Much more of like traditional way to play guitar on gig.
Yeah.
Sick.
Cool.
I mean, I've also done another like real dick producer move, and that guitar part actually comes in halfway through the bar.
Oh, of course it does.
But you know, whatever. I imagine in a show, I can almost I can really hear the conversation in the rehearsal room now of us all being like, "Yeah, do you know what? Actually, for the live show, it should start at the beginning." That's what's going to happen, is it? Let's be real. Like, definitely sounds better when we do that. But yeah, so I guess that's like more the full-time guitar vibes. Also in full-time guitar, we'd probably add a solo there as well.
Yeah.
At some point in the track, structure something in, because people like guitar solos. If you've got guitars on the show, guitaros. if you've got guitars on the show, have a solo part at some point.
Yeah.
Because performatively, like just from a straight stagecraft perspective, it's gonna be good.
Yeah.
Even if it's a medium guitar solo, like people will enjoy it.
Yeah.
And people will be like, it was so cool when that person did the guitar solo.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it doesn't need to be what you kind of think of as guitar solos of like foot on the monitor.
Yeah. Just grow your hair for that one bit.
Yeah.
Like,
no,
rock band part time.
Like, I think it's so impactful to go down the same route of like a punky, like using feedback, using
100%.
a load of fuzz.
Yeah.
Getting something sounding rough and big.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is, stuff to, the ways of making those moments, I think, even if you're not the most confident guitar player.
Absolutely. Like, yeah, solos aren't about being complex. They're about doing something interesting and musical with your instrument. So that can be a wide range of things.
Yeah.
Range of things. Get the radio frequency pedal out. Just try and find the perfect little wonky bloop with it.
Yeah.
My solo is finding a wonky bloop. Of course it is. Art vibes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So final one is Overtime.
Yep.
Which is more approaching guitars on the show, but not maybe quite as much as a guitar.
Yeah.
Trying to use guitars as other instruments. We're like probably doing something more additive. Maybe not necessarily removing things from track to add the guitar. Maybe they're like doubling up like more synth things.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. I mean, this is one of the things that digital processing is really, really good at.
Yeah.
I know that there's like a particular bass pedal actually. Which gig was that on? I can't remember now. But the bass player had like a bass synth pedal that would then like create, it's like harmonized like saw waves and shit out of the bass tone.
Sick.
Super cool. And you could add like little amp envelopes to it and little filter envelopes to it and stuff as well. So you could start doing with that one instrument. The bassist could play synth lines. They could play traditional bass lines. It was a pretty jazzy gig. It'll come to me.
Nice.
I'm sure you came to one of the gigs.
But I think guitar synths is definitely something to talk about. Like you can just get boxes.
Yeah.
A thing on Reverb that does your like guitar to MIDI conversion and makes synth sounds. And they can be a great little world to get into.
Great.
But
wait, creatively or is it a performance thing?
Both.
Fair play.
Yeah. There's some great Roland guitar synths.
Oh yeah, fuck! You were showing me this the other day. The Roland guitar. This is your new vibe.
Yeah, it's a whole world. It
Did you
seems
buy one
wicked.
yet?
Not yet.
Oh,
I'm looking.
I dare you to buy one right now. Open your reverb. Where's your reverb?
You actually don't. Okay, right. Cut.
No, back to real guitars and synths. Yeah.
But yeah, you can get kind of close with just like maxing out effects. And
Yeah.
I guess that's also a bit of a caveat to this kind of approach of guitar is you're putting in the same amount of work producing these guitar sounds as you are producing the sound of a tune on a track.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot of time and experimentation and
100%.
effort to try and find stuff that's unique that then sits in your show.
Yeah, I mean, from a mix perspective, like always adding additional source, you've got to be so conscious of how much you're ruining potentially quite a good mix.
Yeah.
When you're playing, I mean, this is obviously more so to tracks. If you've just got a stage of exclusively raw source that is just from, microphones, miking up musicians, it's going to be much easier for this stuff to work. Whereas, like, the moment those studio produced backing tracks are involved, you've got to be conscious of that.
Yeah. Or like artistically and emotionally, whether you're like willing to take the hit on the pad sound that's getting muted so the guitarist can play that pad sound or their interpretation of it.
Yeah.
Which is also kind of, you need to weigh up if you want to take that hit or if it's cool enough, or like sometimes it can be magic if there's this
100%.
like weird messed up pad sounds and kind of synth sounds that are carrying the show and giving it a sonic identity, like as a show rather than like patch to patch.
Yeah.
Which I think, is another kind of way that using kind of going into guitar with this mindset for shows can be great.
100%.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Like, it's pads are probably the easiest place to approach it because there's a lot of space with pads for layering. It's one of the few places. Layering extra drums can become hectic. Layering extra vocals actually often is good. Layering extra bass, generally a bad idea. Choose your bass. Choose a kick drum. Just get on with it, right?
Yeah.
Stop fucking about with more layers. Just get one that's good. But yeah, definitely like with pad sounds and stuff, like you can add a lot more with guitars. Or I guess, have you got one?
Yeah, I've got a little pad. It's a kind of little filtered
shimmer reverb for days.
Yeah.
Nice.
Playing tenths, which is very synthy.
Great.
You can kind of hear it starting to do weird stuff with that pitch shifting.
Yeah. Nice. I mean, do you want to try that? Try that on the chorus in this. Let's see where we end up. I'll put the guitar back in, actually. It's like a very different vibe that you start adding to the track with that sound. I mean, it's almost as if I want to mute the drums and mute the bass and go at that again.
Yeah.
As like just having it as like. We could even. Why don't I go into the music as well? There's some like very prophet-y chords in there. There they are. Get rid of those. You can create like a totally different vibe with that.
Yeah.
And that could be a really good way to take that part and then go into that track. Like, say that track was the hit in a hypothetical show. You could just totally rearrange that first chorus and that first bridge and then be like, okay, cool, let's the first verse and the first bridge, and then when we get to that first chorus, it could be like, okay, let's get back to what everybody knows.
Yeah.
And that would be very acceptable. Very good way to like have an interesting use of guitar on stage and do something that might be quite interesting for your fans. Something that's quite different, which could be sick.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a real rabbit hole being able to use it.
Yeah, definitely.
As something that it's not. It's quite, it's like instantly creative, which is nice.
I think that's definitely my favorite way to approach guitars when we have them is like, right, how can we make less of a guitar of this?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Like, what weird stuff can we do? What interesting things? Like, where can we recreate something that you wouldn't expect? Where can we have like a synth solo, but actually it's a guitar or whatever? That's where it can get really, really fun. Okay, so I guess, fucking hell, is that like guitars?
I think so.
As much as we can probably talk about on this podcast.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for coming and podcasting.
Pleasure.
Thank you for podcasting. Why don't you play us out with the radio pedal?
Oh, always.
Oh, there it is. What was that little glitchy bit at the end?
Oh, yeah. Oh. All kinds of squeaks.
Played us out with the glitchy pedal. Love it. Podcast! The Showfile podcast is brought to you by the music direction team at A Work in Progress, a live electronic music direction company. If you want to find out more about us, you can get us on YouTube at A Work in Progress -UK, on TikTok and Instagram, aworkinprogress.uk, or on our website, aworkinprogress.uk, where you can also find our blog that has the show notes, diagrams, patches, all the stuff that you're going to need to help understand the podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you again next month. Podcast outro done! Fuck yeah!